City Matters.
Welcome back here to HMTV. Thank you for joining us. To my left, I have Lieutenant Owen McCaffrey from the Emergency Service Unit of the New York City Police Department. We were just speaking about his experiences as a police officer and in the ESU, and also his early moments in 9/11/01 in Lower Manhattan. Owen, when we look at this here, you had a really good friend. His name was Michael Curtin. He was one of the 4 Rocky Point graduates that were lost from 9/11. Where were you working, and then where was Michael Curtin working? Was he in the same truck as you, or how did you come across Mike there?
I supervised him for 10 years, so he was, not 10 years. I supervised him for 4 or 5 years before he passed away. I knew him from as a cop in Truck 7, and I knew he worked in the 113 precinct, and then he made sergeant, came back to ESU up in Harlem, worked with a friend of mine, Joe Vigiano, and Mike was a good guy.
Now, what were some of his experiences before, getting in the police and emergency services?
So he was a lifelong Marine. He joined the Marine Corps, did 10 years as a full-time Marine. He was a drill instructor. He was a sergeant major at the time of his death. He was just a Marine's Marine. He couldn't afford to stay in the Marine Corps with his wife and 3 kids, so he joined the police department for higher wages.
Sure.
And he stayed in the reserves, and to have a guy like that who had combat experience, because he was in the first Gulf War, and he actually was on the point of the spear going into Kuwait.
He was one of the first Marines.
One of the first Marines in Kuwait, Kuwait City. So he was quite a character, a tremendous emergency service supervisor. His men were trained, and he would constantly train with them, and he was just a awesome and great man.
Now, when you look at Curtin, where was he at this point with 9/11?
So on the day of 9/11, he responded from Harlem. So they shoot right down the West Side Highway. So they arrived there simultaneously with Truck 1.
They were Truck 1?
They were in Truck 2.
Truck 2, okay.
So he's a Truck 2 sergeant. So they show up really, really early into it. As a matter of fact, the second building wasn't hit yet. So he led the first group of men into the North Tower. And he had a couple guys, and 4 ended up passing away that day. And what happened is Joe Vigiano and Vinny Dance went ahead of him. They went in the building together, but he said, keep on going up. I'm going to take this victim down the stairs. So his crew took the victim down the stairs, and Joe and Vinny Dance, who was a former Marine as well, they were probing ahead. And, all of a sudden, the second building comes down, and our radios worked. Unfortunately, the fire departments didn't, but we got radio transmissions to get out of that building. By that time, we had 3 teams in that building, and all of them got out of the building safely except for Curtin's.
Where was Mike at that point?
He was like on the 30-something floor, like 33rd or 34th floor, and then we estimate Vig and Dance were on the 40th floor, and they were told to exit, and they communicated with Joe, and Joe said, I'm on my way down. I'll meet you in front. So Curtin went down the stairs, and they found a woman, and they put her in a chair, a big, heavy woman, and they carried her down the stairs, and they gave her over to EMS. And then he told his men, you guys go to West Street. When I'll catch up with you guys later when I got everyone out of this building, because in the Marine Corps, apparently they really teach you.
You don't leave anyone behind.
You ain't leaving no one behind. And he was a Marine through and through, so he wouldn't leave anyone behind. And his driver that day was this guy, John Delara, and he ordered John to go over to West Street with the other guys, and he refused. He says, I'm your driver. I'm not leaving your side, Sarge. No matter what you say, not leaving your side.
Yeah, I'm staying with you.
So he stayed with him. And then Claude Richards, a bomb squad guy, walked over and was talking to Mike. And this was all witnessed by the cops he dismissed. Those guys had were going through this door, and they heard a loud rumbling, and they watched the building come down and kill Mike and the bomb squad technician and his partner. Obviously, Joe and Vinny Dance were killed as well.
So what did they say about Curtin? He made a conscious effort to stay behind.
Made a conscious effort. Like, there's a lot of people that were in that building that got crushed. He was out of the building. He could have told Joe, hey, come to West Street when you come out of the building, but he would not leave his men behind, and that's it. And he made a conscious effort, and that cost him his life.
Now, Curtin passes away. This is, at the start of all this.
So if I go back to day one, after we reconvene, do another roll call, because now everyone's coming in off duty. We had to log in who's coming and everything. So we redeploy, and a fireman gets, some off-duty Marine says, hey, there's some cops there's some people down alive in this hole. So the firemen start talking to the guy, and they're like, oh, they're two policemen, and some emergency service guys are walking by him, and they go, hey, there's two cops in this hole. These are your guys. So we take over that scene, and we end up taking those two Port Authority cops, the last two people taken out of the Trade Center alive.
What kind of support did you guys have to move debris? And was there debris there, or was it?
No, they had to crawl in and hand remove the debris. They had to rope in and hand move the debris off these people. And there was no equipment you could use. There was no crane. First of all, there was no cranes on the scene yet, and
it's so early. It's just
so that we worked through the night. ESU worked through the night, freeing those two guys, and it took us hours. I mean, that thing started around 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and we didn't get the second cop out to 7 in the morning, and it was quite a job. I'd gone up there, started supervising it. I assigned them like 10 cops, and then I continued doing other stuff.
Now, when you guys rescued them, your officers rescued them, what did they look like?
You know what? I don't know, because I got smoke inhalation about 11 o'clock at night. I sucked down a bottle of oxygen. I went back to one truck, went to sleep, and I got back up at 6 in the morning. I started there at 7 in the morning.
I guess the most important thing, they lived, right? They survived.
They did live, and they made movies about it, and it was quite a rescue.
Wow. Now, what was your responsibilities? What was your job after 9/11?
So I show up the next day. I start doing a day tour, and our boss took control of it. He goes, look, I want you on midnights, so go home early today and come back tomorrow starting on the midnight. So I lasted there to about 8 o'clock at night. I went back to one truck again, took a shower, slept there. And the next day I started at 2 in the afternoon. And then I eventually adjusted. They assigned me 6 at night to 6 in the morning. So for the rest of the time down at the Trade Center to about January or February, I did 6 at night to 6 in the morning, 7 days a week. I was in charge of they put me as lieutenant in charge, which I never heard of that. But they assigned me, there was 3 lieutenants they were cops or sergeants in the unit and had been out of the unit, and they brought them back. So the 4 of us ran the Trade Center at night, and I broke our men up. I had about 75 or 80 guys a night, and we just worked. We worked the whole pile, and I would coordinate with the lieutenant in charge of the day shift, and I'd report to him exactly what we were doing, who we found, what we did.
So it was all rescue and recovery?
Yeah, all rescue and recovery. But unfortunately, early on, within a week, most of us, we would never say this publicly to anybody, but we realized we're not going to find people here. This thing's over. So it's just a body recovery.
So now how long were you at Ground Zero for?
Well, I was there to June, But I went back to patrol. I'd work 3 or 4 nights on patrol and 3 or 4 nights down at the Trade Center.
You go down to Lower Manhattan ever anymore? Do you ever go down there?
I just took my daughters there. My daughter had a project, and she had I forget what the project was about, but we ended up going to the World Trade Center Museum. And I've been there quite a few times, you know.
Is there anything that strikes you when you go down there? Is there any reminders? Or?
Oh, it reminds you of the World Trade Center. I remember at the end of the World Trade Center, there was these things called slurry walls. You remember them?
No.
So they were, the way they dug, they had to stop the water from coming into that hole, right? They were 6 stories down. So they had to build these walls, and they called them slurry walls. And they had to drill into the bedrock like something like 60 or 70 feet, and they put cable in there, and then they fill the cable up with cement, and they called it a box or a bath, and it was crazy. And they preserved one of those real slurry walls.
Wow.
It's I remember every night we had to practice evacuating in case the slurry walls gave up, and it was wild.
Did you ever write about any of this stuff? Did you ever?
No.
Because the description, I mean, the detail, you know, I know you could probably go a lot further with some of this information. Yeah. It's just.
So some of the good things, and now I'm going to talk about the police perspective. So 23 New York City cops died, and we recovered everybody that wasn't in emergency service. So we got everybody that wasn't assigned to emergency service. And unfortunately, the people in emergency service, 10 people were deployed into the South Tower. We only recovered 1 person out of the South Tower.
And that was Curtin?
No. Curtin was in North Tower. So we recovered this guy, Driscoll. And later on, they found some bones of this other guy. But so basically, we're still missing 8 guys. But we got all, like, there's no one in the police department could say we were looking for the emergency service guys and not our guys. To me, we were looking for Americans. It was a bonus, which is a hard to fathom thought, that it was a bonus and you were happy when you discovered a cop. And you were really happy when we discovered an emergency service cop that you knew. You imagine being super happy and celebrating, and there's your friend, and he's, I won't describe what he looked like, but it wasn't pretty. Months and months later.
Now, when they found Curtin, what was that whole experience like? So
we found Alara on a day shift, and we knew that because I witnessed it. We knew that we were going to find Alara, Curtin, and Claude Richards together. So we found Alara, and we recovered him and returned him to his family. And the next night, we dug up Claude Richards, which I don't want to be too descriptive, but he must have been encased in mud or something. His body was almost intact, and we got all of them. It was a remarkable recovery. It wasn't for some decay on his face. He might have been an open casket. I mean, he was really in great shape. And then the next night
pretty amazing considering.
It was amazing.
Right?
We were in shock. And then the next night we've recovered Mike. Of course, you know, all of our widows were coming, all the police widows were coming to our center all the time, so we got familiar with them. So I called his wife, whose name is Helga, and she came in with her 3 daughters.
Was it her birthday?
You know, I'm not sure.
Curtin? I think that might have, I could be wrong, but I think he just wanted to go and do his job, come home, cook her a dinner.
Yeah, remember the cooking and dinner part? Yeah. But she was called. She's a former Marine as well. And it was like the first civilian I saw that ever help us carry the body out of the World Trade Center. So
what did they do to the whole site at that point?
Well, whenever we recovered a cop or a fireman, and basically whenever we recovered a body, even if it was a civilian, we draped them in, we shut the site down, we draped them in an American flag and dragged them out.
And then who was there when he gets carried out?
So when we had him packaged, and we were waiting for Commissioner Kelly to show up, and then he was waiting for Helga Curtin to show up. She was coming from Medford, so it's a long ride, and he let her carry his body out with us. So he was draped in an American flag in a body bag, and it was Commissioner Kelly and Helga Curtin in the front, and then the rest were emergency service cops. And Marine Corps was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, waiting for Curtin to get recovered. So, of course, we called the Marine Corps, and they had given us a special flag they wanted us to use on his body. So we covered his body with that specific flag, and me and that sergeant in the Marine Corps led the procession of the commissioner and Helga and a bunch of guys carrying him.
Do you remember when you guys were transporting the body? Did the streets stop? Did they salute?
It was like 2 a.m, so it was nothing going on.
Nothing going on.
And we loaded him into 2 trucks. Of course, we get a highway escort, so some motorcycles showed up and some cars showed up. And then, Helga and the commissioner and a bunch of people get behind 2 trucks, and the highway cops lead you to the morgue at Bellevue. And then everyone in the 13th precinct, everyone goes to Bellevue and salutes the body coming in. So he had a great transfer. He had a great, from the Trade Center to the morgue, he had a very nice sending off.
Now, this is a tough question. You lose your friend, Helga loses her husband, right? His kids lose their father, family members, right? Was it easier on the family that his remains were finally found?
100%. That's why we were happy. Whenever we found someone, a cop, we were happy because we were going to give their family closure. Because remember, we have 8 families that don't have anybody. They never got home back.
It was like almost a sense of now we could say goodbye to.
Yeah, it was wonderful when we would find people. We found Vigiano and Dance before Curtin because obviously they were still in the building when it happened. So when we got to them, we recovered them, and then we recovered. So we got everyone in our unit that was in the North Tower.
Now we had here Frank Tepedino. He was a baseball player, played with the Yankees, the Braves, the Brewers. He was later a 9/11 fireman. And he said once, he goes, I didn't know them all, but all those 343 firemen were my friends.
Yeah.
And you must have had the same feeling, right, in terms of law enforcement and.
So we had the same feeling, but just to let you know, my dad was a New York City fireman for 27 years, and he was heartbroken. He's like, I know 50 guys that lost their sons there. He's like, I know all these names.
Sure.
I used to have to drive him to the firemen's funerals. I'd pick him up and drive him to these firemen's funerals. I did every single ESU funeral, and I probably did half the police funerals. I probably did 20 firemen funerals, and it would just throw my sleep pattern off because this is the only time I have to sleep because I'd have to go do a midnight that night. But it was heartbreaking, and I knew 20 firemen myself just from being a volunteer fireman. I'm in the volunteer fire department. Now I'm in 37 years. I had taken 10 years off. But I knew a bunch of city firemen that were volunteer firemen. So, and then I didn't know any of the city cops that passed away that weren't in the ESU. So out of 23, I knew 14 in the ESU. It was 2 brand new guys. I only met them once each. And then, so I didn't know them, but the other 12 worked with me for years and years and years.
So you definitely heard the sound of bagpipes a lot.
Oh, that's all we heard.
And the bagpipes is a beautiful sound, but after 9/11, it was just continuous.
Continuous, But, and then we never mentioned the Port Authority policemen. They lost 44 guys. And the first cop we dug out of the World Trade Center was dropped off at the temporary morgue by the fire department, and I called the Port Authority lieutenant, whose name is Bill Keegan. We worked together every night down at the Trade Center. So me and Keegan went over there, and we unzipped the bag, and we went through the body. It was burnt pretty horrifically. And he had a microphone in his lung, so I pulled it out, and it was an Ericsson, and NYPD uses Motorola, and Port Authority uses Ericssons. So I said, well, there's a Port Authority
That's
cop.
how you were able to figure it out.
Yep. And the fireman didn't know if he's they thought he was a fireman because he had a Scott pack on, but firemen use a half-hour Scott pack, so we used, us and the Port Authority used 45-minute Scott packs. So when they realized that that wasn't a city fire Scott pack, that then they realized it was a cop.
Now, it's been almost 25 years after 9/11. Seems like yesterday, and
Yeah.
time goes by. You don't think it, but it goes by very quick. Is there, I know you speak to schools and different groups, and is there one thing that you like to present to people about the importance of 9/11, like the service, the camaraderie, the loss? Is there anything that you...
Not really. I mean, when I used to go visit this guy, Mr. Vigiano, his son was a cop and a fireman. He died. Mr. Vigiano used to take me and 9 of Joe's friends. He'd say, pick 9 of Joe's friends. We're going to Washington. And we used to go to Bethesda and Walter Reed and visit the troops that were severely injured. Half of us would go up to the step-down ward, which means they would, when you landed in America and you had your surgery, 2 days later they'd put you in the step-down ward, which is like an intensive care ward. And we go in there and talk to these guys that just had their amputations done and everything. And what I used to convey to them is the New York City Police Department and Fire Department were knocked to the ground. We got kicked right in the crotch, and we were knocked out and on the ground. We got up, we dusted ourselves off.
You weren't out for the count, though.
We dusted ourselves off. We cleared that side up. We dug it out. We recovered as many Americans, as many cops and firemen as we could. But we couldn't go take care of the situation that needed to be taken care of. And the only people that could do that is the armed forces of the United States. So we took the football and handed it off to the armed forces. And they took care of the rest of the matter. I consider the people in the armed forces the extension of 9/11. Because if it wasn't for 9/11, they wouldn't have been there fighting. And we convey that message to those soldiers we used to visit. He's like, he's 20-something years old, he just lost his legs. And I'd say, this guy here, Mr. Vigiano, lost his 2 sons. One was a cop, one was a fireman.
Yeah.
You know, you could be dead, but you were there because of us.
Sure.
And we appreciate it.
Now, the shirt that you have on, how can you describe the shirt that you're wearing?
So this is the Michael Curtin golf outing shirt, and there's the Marine Corps symbol there, the emergency service symbol there, and here's his sergeant shield. Those are the numbers of the name of this foundation, and that's the shirt. I figured I'd wear it here today because me and him golf together at this.
And that's the 3256 Foundation. Any people that are watching, they're going to be in for probably one of the finest 9/11 and patriotic
great
golf outings in July, Cherry Creek.
Yep.
Yeah, out near Riverhead, Baden Hollow.
Outstanding golf tournament.
Now, after you play a little golf, you have a couple drinks, what do you do that night?
I usually give this speech to tell everyone about the history of Mike Curtin. And I asked Helga, do you want them crying or do you want me to be light? And the last couple of years, she has me being light. But, you know, we just talk about Mike. He's a great guy, you know. And they were all good guys.
All good guys. The Finnegans, the Curtins, Lucases.
Yep.
Right? They're all, and they have generations of children that are there now helping out, and younger guys that are seeing their family, right?
Yeah. So I met Richie at the golf outing, and then I get a phone call from him a couple weeks later, and he asked me to come speak on 9/11 to his students in his high school, in the Rocky Point High School, where Mike went to high school. He thought that'd be interesting, and I probably did about 10 speeches there before it doesn't happen anymore. But I appreciate teachers that want to pass the lessons of 9/11 to the youngins, and it's something that should be taught in school for more than a 10-minute blip.
Yeah, my students walked by 4 people that were killed: Michael Curtin, the Egan sisters, and Joanna Ladiotis. Every day they walk by them, and you would be doing them a disservice if you did not speak about 9/11 and next year, you know, we're going to invite you back again for the 25th anniversary. And it's not an anniversary that you look forward to. It's one that you have to address. So, and, you know, I'd like to thank Lieutenant Owen McCaffrey coming down here today to HMTV, and your experiences that are not always the easiest, but they're very important.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Richie. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Owen.